Welcome to the program Integrity Watch. Good morning, all of you. And this is your 1 hour radio program that is produced by the communication section at the Center for Transparency and Accountability in Liberia, CENTAR. My name is Edward Blamo. I'm your host, and as well, I'm the Media and Communications Officer at CENTAR. This program serves as your primary radio-based communication and information dissemination platform of Centaur. It's also a key advocacy tool that provides essential information about the state of the fight against corruption and national integrity building efforts. And as well, it is an activity of our national Integrity Building and Anti-Corruption Program, which is a 3 year program that is supported by the government and people of Sweden through the Swedish International Development Cooperation Agency, SIDA. We will take a short break, and when we return, we will introduce our guest. And before that, we will talk about a lot of things we're doing at Centaur. Let's take this break. Yes. Welcome back to the program Integrity Watch. As we stated, this is an activity of the National Integrity Building and Anti-Corruption Program, which is also called NIMBA. And that program is supported by the government and people of Sweden through the Swedish International Development Cooperation Agency, SIDA. As you may be aware, CENTAR and SIDA has been in this partnership since 2020. There was an agreement signed between CENTAR and SIDA for the implementation and financial support to the National Integrity Building and Anti-Corruption Program. And that first phase of the agreement ended in December 2023, and SIDA and CENTAR signed an extended partnership agreement, which will continue on the program for additional 3 years. So this radio program is an activity of that partnership. This is where we allow you, members of the public, to get directly involved in the discussions around corruption. For so long, we have been sitting in our corners and complaining the government is corrupt and these people are corrupt and this is happening, but we've not been, forthcoming with, making our voices heard on a bigger scale. That is why we have this radio program to make you active players in the fight against corruption and not passive. We've got a lot of passive actors in the fight against corruption. We want you to participate. We have a lot of ways through which you can participate. You can call on the show and make your input, your recommendations, and whatever you may have. You can report corruption to Centaur. We have our advocacy and legal advice center. We have lawyers there. They are trained, they are ready, and they are willing to receive your complaints of corruption and do their investigation. And when there are merits, they will forward to the Liberia Anti-Corruption Commission. And as you may be aware, the Liberia Anti-Corruption Commission now has the power to directly prosecute corruption cases. Unlike before, where they will forward those cases to the Ministry of Justice for prosecution, now it's a different story. They have the power now to go directly to the court and prosecute cases of corruption. So once you report an allegation of corruption through Centaur Advocacy and Legal Advice Center by calling the toll-free hotline 4432, you have a big chance of having that particular allegation turn into a case and having that case going directly to the court for prosecution. Before we talk about some of the other things we're doing at Centaur, I would like to introduce our guests. We may have We have already in our studio the executive director of InfoQuest Liberia, and he's Matthias Yene. And we will be talking about a lot of things that they are doing, some of the positions they've made on some critical national issues, and what they have planned to undertake as an organization. InfoQuest Liberia, as you may know, or if you don't know, is a policy research and evidence-based advocacy and social impact governance institution that was established to ensure that a lot of things are happening, that we have evidence-based research, we have evidence-based advocacy, and that we can have a wholesome functioning society. We will get back to Matthias later on to talk about what you're doing at Info Quest Liberia, but we'd just like to let you know that under the second phase of the National Integrity Building and Anti-Corruption Program, CENTAR is engaged in series of activity, one of which is our info posting. We are identifying facilities, we've identified facilities and are providing public services. And what we are doing with those facilities, that we are erecting billboards. We are erecting billboards that have the fees for those services. We are providing the public with access to information around what the costs are for accessing public services. That way, we believe we can reduce the likelihood of extortion and bribery. When you go now at the Ministry of Transport, we have two giant billboards there. Those billboards have fees for services at the Ministry of Transport. What is it that is required to register your vehicle? What is it that is required to have a driver's license? All of those information, the cost for those services, are a bulletin board erected by CENTAR under the auspices of the National Integrity Forum, which we are funding through the Swedish International Development Corporation Agency support. We also have our open expenditure initiative, and this is an initiative where we work with county officials and local authorities to ensure that there is transparency around the utilization of the county social development funds. We organize forums, open expenditure forums, where we invite those county leaders to talk about what their plans are for the county social development funds. And we also ensure that there is inclusivity, that everyone is involved in decisions around the utilization of the county social development fund. This phase of the program, will be more engaged with research. We're conducting research on the budget, we're doing budget analysis, and we have a dedicated platform for that budget analysis. If you want to know what our analysis is of the national budget, you can visit our website that we've dedicated to that process. Is www.liberiabudget.info. We call that our budget portal. When you go there, you will find all of our previous budget analysis we've done and the recent one that we are conducting. And you will find those information as soon as it's ready there, published on that website. We also have stories, investigative stories that we funded on the mining in different sectors, and those stories are published on this portal. And again, the handle is www.liberiabudget.info. We are also continuing with our state of corruption report. We produce that annually, and we expect to have another edition of our state of corruption report by December 2024. That report sort of, analyze the trends of corruption in Liberia. It gives a picture of how corruption looks like in Liberia, where it is high and where it is lower, and which sector is more prone to corruption. We are developing our corruption case tracker, where you members of the public can have access to information around corruption, where the LACC is as it relates to investigation and prosecution of corruption cases, the status of various corruption cases. They will be available on that tracker. We're developing the tracker. We want to ensure that it's user friendly, it's easily accessible, that you members of the public can access the tracker to know where we are with the fight against corruption. And that corruption case tracker will be up very soon. And because we're doing this because we realize that the LACC, new LACC law, forbids to some extent the LACC from revealing corruption allegation information to the public. So if someone is alleged of corruption, the LACC in the new law, should not be, popularizing their names, should not be holding press conferences and telling the public that this person is alleged of corruption. So what we are doing when we find the allegation in the newspapers or wherever, we will populate it on this corruption case tracker so that we are the ones that are informing you about the status of various corruption cases. What is an allegation? What is a case already? What is a court? What has been investigated? What has been prosecuted? What has been finalized? All of those information will be available on our corruption case tracker. We are also running our Integrity Club outreach program. We're working with 4 universities as we speak: United Methodist University, AMEU, AME University, yes, United Methodist University, Stella Maris Polytechnic University, and the University of Liberia. All of those universities have our Integrity Club outreach or program there, and we are also extending that program to various high schools. We are already now at the Ford Maiden Christian Academy. And what we're doing is we're building an army of young people that is empowered with information about integrity and the fight against corruption. And the end goal is to have a group of young people who may become future leaders imbued with the tenets of integrity, that when they are in leadership positions tomorrow, that they will know the value of living by example or leading by example or having integrity. That is what we're doing because these are people who will take up leadership positions tomorrow. So if you imbue with them the tenets of integrity, you train them consistently like we're doing. If you empower them to not just educate their peers in their classrooms, but also go into their community with awareness messages about the dangers of corruption, the need to tread with integrity, we will have a better society. That is what we are doing, and we intend to expand that program to as much high schools as we can to ensure that a lot of people have those information, a lot of young people have those information. And in case you are in any of those universities, you have the chance to join the Integrity Club. You can go at the administrative buildings at the University of Liberia, do the same at the UMU, do the same at AMEU. You can do the same at Stella Maris and ask for the coordinator or the president of the Integrity Club, and you will be directed, and you will, you will be informed of all of the processes involved in having yourself a part of the Integrity Club outreach program and be a change agent. We are also continuing with our National Integrity Forum advocacy program, where we are working with government's anti-graft institutions, the LACC, the GAC, the Governance Commission, the LERTR, and a lot of them who are in a Governance Commission are named the Governance Commission, and the General Auditing Commission, the Public Procurement and Concession Commission, the National Elections Commission. All of those anti-graft institutions, governments, anti-graft institutions, are part of the National Integrity Forum, and we are working with them, providing support through our partner to ensure that they can work together to promote transparency within government. And we have our Advocacy and Legal Advice Center, where we receive complaints of corruption. If you're out there and you see corruption happening in wherever space you are, You have a platform to report. The platform is Centara's Advocacy and Legal Advice Center. The number to call is 4432. It's free of charge. Centara has paid for that number. So whether you are using Orange or Lone Star, you can call 4432 any day, any hour, and report corruption. There is a team of lawyers at Centara who is ready and willing to receive your complaints of corruption, and they are ready and willing to act upon those complaints. We are working with civil society organizations, grassroots civil society organizations. Some of them are based in communities through our program we call the Joint Civil Society Anti-Corruption Initiative, which is also called JOCSA. And these groups, there are 10 of them. We're working with them. We're providing support to engage in advocacy around corruption. They've had marches, they've had petitioning, they've had programs, they've had symposiums, they've had community engagement activities. They've done a lot, and all of those efforts are geared towards ensuring that we can have community-based organization part and parcel of the fight against corruption. So basically, these are some of the things we're doing at Centara. We will stop right here and take a short break, and when we return, we will go directly to our guest. Let's take this break. Let's take this break. Welcome back to the program Integrity Watch. As we stated earlier, we have the executive director of the InfoQuest Liberia, a civil society organization working to promote good governance and accountability in Liberia. And Matthias Yene is here. Welcome, Matthias.
Thank you. Thank you, Blamo, and I'm happy to be here. And thanks to Centara for this wonderful program. I think it's an insightful program you've established here. And we want to congratulate you guys. You've been doing well. I think you've helped to complement the government's effort in bringing transparency and accountability to public sector through the support of the Swedish government. And you also been complementing even other civil society efforts. We consider you in civil society as the lead. You and ALAP as a lead in the fight against corruption, and all of us can support for us who are in research base and other advocacy, some other democratic related issues can be able to also support your activity because if we do not have a kind of concerted effort towards the fight against corruption, is is going to be a fiasco because the fight against corruption is not a government thing, and it's not just a civil society thing. It's not just the LCC thing. Is the thing for everyone. Every Liberian need to support the fight against corruption,
Okay.
whether from our homes, to our workplaces, in public spaces, and so forth. And I must congratulate the team, led by my good friend Anderson,
Yeah.
I'm Jared, and all of you guys who are there and doing a wonderful job. And I think you have a very good crack team, with the support of all of us, including the partners, including government. And I think people should see the work that we do as civil society organizations as complementing the efforts, of government in our democracy to enabling an environment that all of us can live. We can reap the benefits of the of our labor, and see our democracies thrive. I think it's a good thing, and I must congratulate the team again, and thank you for having me here.
Okay, so let's get to business and let's talk about InfoQuest Liberia. I mean, what are you guys?
Yeah, so InfoQuest Liberia is a kind of strange name. Others may want to see the center for this and this. Yeah, the institute for this and this. And so forth. But then um, the crafter, and funders thought that, look, uh, let's see whether we can have a very strange name, an info quest. Info, which is information,
Okay.
and then the quest is the search for information.
Mhm.
So it's a search for information to provide for public digestion, and then public decision making.
Okay.
So it doesn't just go to oh, you are investigating. You also do research. Look, before uh, development initiatives are done in a civilized environment,
Mm.
there must be research and data to show that, look, if we do this, we're going to affect these number of persons. How does this development affect the economy, our health, the environment, and looking at our human development.
Okay.
So we come with the background that, look, we need to have evidence based, and advocacy and research. We need to add to some level of innovation where we're going to be doing investigative research. We're also going to be doing investigative, yeah, research in the environment sector, in other sectors, and also add a little flavor of technology to what we do,
Okay.
as a country. So we want to improve a lot of our space. It's something that we do manually. Let's see how we can do it, and add technology to it so that it becomes easy and simple for people to, for citizens to navigate and get information. How can we bring information to the doorsteps of our citizens? Look, we are going through the social media,
Okay.
other platforms, which is the radio, and also, how can we say, look, like you are doing, you have the center where people are, providing, going through text
Yep.
messages, and so forth, and reporting and all
Yep.
of that. These are things we want to, complement the efforts of other civil society organizations, to making sure we do this. Let's provide the data. In Liberia, one major thing that is missing in our development space is the
It's
data.
data. Very serious. I
Yeah.
mean,
So how can we,
mhm.
put ourselves in a position to provide the data to our development space? So if you want data, whether it's on is on a business, there are many things that people do in Liberia. People will just open a shop or open a space to sell. They do not know whether there has been a kind of a market study to identify what goes in this particular area.
Okay.
What business can I make that I can profit from, that will also provide the services, And also with some with all of our issues around, how can we say, okay, we have issue maybe around drug now that is prevalent in our society. What are the causes? So crimes are committed,
Mhm.
but they are not just committed because they want to be committed. There are causes related to those crimes that are committed. Why are people selling drugs? Why are people taking drugs? So it's not just that we will grab them and persecute them, but we need to know the root causes of
Okay.
these things. And that's how we tackle these kinds of things here, son. And
Yeah.
that's the kind of thing we bring to the
So
discourse.
what that means is that you have a very big work to do, because if you
Exactly.
look at the data gap in Liberia, it's almost evidence everywhere that there is a need for data in almost every sector. So my thing is, for example, we need data on healthcare, in
Yeah.
education, for
Yeah.
example. We actually we missed out on one of those Millennium Challenge account deliverable because we couldn't provide certain data on primary education, and
Exactly.
so it means that we have a lot of data gaps in Liberia. How are you going to kind of engage in your data or collection or data analysis? Is it based on the needs or priorities, or what are some of your priorities in terms of data? Because you cannot get data for all of the sectors in Liberia. It's not.
Definitely.
Yeah.
No, as you stated, we look at health,
Okay.
which is key. Do we have a current data on maternal mortality rate, as to real time data as to what is happening there? Do we have a current data on? We usually develop a national development agenda,
Yeah.
and most of it is political. And we want to build roads, we want
Mm.
to build schools here and so forth. How are these development initiatives being informed by the data?
Okay.
That look, when we build roads here, we're going to the government going to benefit,
Mm.
and citizens going to benefit, and these are the number of peoples the road will affect.
Mm.
However, these are the number I mean, this is how the road is going to affect the environment through a disturbing biodiversity, because when you build roads,
Mm.
and there are species there that you're going to lose, in the soil, in the
Mm.
environment, and all of that. And how what are the social impact, what are the economic impact? So if we can provide these things, and that's where we come from, as to what can we do. How you are into corruption.
Mm.
How does corruption affect the psyche of people? Now there are people who say, look, I mean, everybody's stealing, everybody involved into corruption.
Yeah.
We have, I mean, so this person is our own rogue,
Yes.
and and you
Yeah.
got your rogue,
You leave
and
our
yeah, yeah.
road.
So leave our rogue alone, So these kinds of things
Yeah.
have affected the psyche of Liberians. So, what research can be backed by that if you want to create awareness around, disabusing the minds of Liberians on corruption, and seeing that corruption is not the way, because corruption has hurt us for more than 100 plus years.
Yeah.
So, we need to, take a different trend. What is it that we can do different as a nation after 6 years come, 6 year goals, and so forth? What are the needs that we can tackle? Usually you see our development agenda is probably based on presidential terms.
Mm.
Yeah, you have 6 years,
Yes.
and you have a new development, and the CDC led government
Yes.
had the Propo
Proper agenda.
agenda.
Yes.
Now the Unity Party led government has an arrest agenda. Can we as a nation, informed
Mm.
our development agenda through a kind of research base, and say, look, for education, this is what we want. This is the data, to support the development of education. For health, this is it. And then we develop a national development plan for 10 years, 15 years, 25 years. And any government that comes, stick to that plan.
Mm.
So you're not going to bring. So if you want to coin, maybe your platform around that, you need to go to the national development agenda for the country and coin your plan for 6 years. So it's okay for the national development agenda.
Mhm.
Now we're going to tackle 6 pillars,
6 pillars.
or
Okay.
we're going to tackle 4 thematic areas, and then you go there and coin it. So we know that if President Joseph Boakai is leaving in 2029, we're going to have him. Maybe he have tackled agriculture. Maybe Liberia is, almost becoming self-sufficient, or maybe most of the primary roads in the country have been paved. And, it's pliable. We do not have, car being stuck in the mud. And through his 6 years term, so we know that. So then we know that we are developing sector by sector. If we do not do that, you will see. Look, no one can tell me that in Liberia we've been able to develop a single sector to say this sector is good 80% or 90%.
Okay.
Everything is on the same mark, and we just go in circles. So we
So,
need to change the dynamics,
so
and that is not informed by research and data.
as a research institution, I mean, are you looking at other previous, for example, research report to maybe, amplify the advocacy? For example, if you look at the constraints analysis done back then in the Ellen Johnson Sirleaf administration,
Yeah.
constraints to development,
Yeah.
there was this analysis done, and I mean, on what is constraining development in Liberia, and the number one thing that popped up is electricity.
Yeah.
So I mean, and we've had different governments coming and still cannot fully address the issue of electricity when it is the major constraints or constraint to development in Liberia. What are you doing about things like this?
We're not just going. We're not just saying that Liberia doesn't have data. No,
Okay.
we are saying that there is a gap. It's not sufficient
Okay.
for our development work. We know that there have been research before us. There have been others who have done a very good job, and with that, some Liberian government, some civil society organizations, international partners have provided that. We also going to do an analysis of so we do an analysis and develop briefing papers to support some of that and see how we can bring it to real day Liberia. Okay, so now the, look, there have been some issues around. The government is losing maybe around 20+ million dollar
Mhm.
to power theft.
Mm.
What has been the issue? Do we know the root causes? We've just been saying it and we cannot talk? We say, oh, but now if you look, there are Liberians who have been connected, okay, and sometimes they are not able to get the requisite current.
Yes.
Sometimes even to get connected, you need to have level of contact,
Okay.
in within the LLC, within the LLC before they can come and connect you. And then when you are connected, to get meter, and your meter is installed and so forth, you need to go to the LEC's station
Mm.
before you can do your first recharge, and then they open your meter before you come back. So people do not have that kind of luxury of time to go to a particular station to do that. How can we decentralize? Okay, what is it that we can do? So let's find what are the causes and back it by research and say
Okay.
these are the things. Not we not just say okay, people are stealing current, but there are reasons why people are stealing current.
Okay.
I am not backing people stealing current, because I mean is issue of corruption.
Mhm.
Okay, but what are the causes of those things? And so if we know the causes, then we can be able to say, okay, these are measures that we can put in place to mitigate the risks. We may not be able to, clearly, remove all of that, but we can be able to mitigate, through research and evidence-based advocacy. So
Okay.
that's what we're doing.
You've been engaged. You've had a press conference recently. You have, talked about making assets declared by the president and other members of his cabinet public. Why do you think that is necessary? Why do you think, I mean, it should be done, especially at this time?
So the president, came into power, and on the mantra of no business as usual. The past president, George Weah, declared his asset did not, and he did not publish his asset. Don't get me wrong; it is not required by law.
Okay.
As all of us know that the that a person needs to publish their asset. They can declare their asset. And there are two different things. Declaring your asset and publishing your asset, there are two different things. So you declare your asset, and according to the law, the executive, declare their asset to the General Auditing Commission.
Okay.
And we've received to the LSCC, so that means the LSCC should have a copy of what you declare to the LSCC. Then there's the legislative branch declare their assets to either the chief clerk or the office or the secretary of the Senate office.
Okay.
Then the judiciary, to the secretary, the clerk of the court. So these are places where you declare your asset. However, the president we want the president to demonstrate that kind of leadership, holding to the fact that he has preached on transparency and accountability, having an open government and so forth. We feel that there's no harm for the president to declare and publish his assets. Let Liberians know what this president has. People have been saying, oh, the president have been saying he's been living on loan, from this and that and so forth. He doesn't have money and so forth. But we want to know. We want to know what he has.
Okay.
And we want to know the assets, the liabilities, and so forth, in order to know exactly what he brings to the table. Let it be published so that Liberians can see and hold this president accountable and say, yes, this is not business as usual. Let that leadership be shown, in the public space. And for those who he have appointed. I mean, you listen to the LSCC boss. She said out of 500 appointments, you have only 75 who are declared assets. Under section 10.1, of the Code of Conduct, that states that those who should declare should be people, who are presiding over contracts, signing contracts, doing payments, and all of that. So those who are in that category, I think the president needs to take a step. He needs to take action against them if they are not declared, because it's issue about rule of law.
Okay.
And the president have said he's going to make sure to hold the rule of law, and being someone who will support the rule of law in our country. So he needs to take action against his ministers. I mean, we are calling for suspension or, if possible, dismissal, because that is gross violation of our laws, the Code of Conduct. And I'm surprised at the LSCC that they will be giving extra time to those who declare.
But don't the LSCC don't the LSCC have this power or any other authority, for example, to reprimand whoever that reneges on declaring his or her asset? Or does the LSCC power stop at just naming and shaming? What do you think about that?
And that is surprising to me, because the new LSCC Act, which is called the new LSCC, the new Anti-Corruption Commission Act of 2021. That act, section 4, which is power of the commission, that is which is section 4, power of the commission, and I states clearly that the LSCC shall summon to comply to the persons required to declare their assets and liabilities pursuant to 15.1, of the Code of Conduct. So the LSCC can summon you, and force you to comply. So the LSCC needs to use that power.
Are you engaging the LSCC as well as a
I mean, of course, we are going to do that, but we are first calling on them, because they should know their powers. The LSCC has particular powers. The LSCC can summon those who have not. We are saying those who have declared, publish their names. Those who have not declared, publish their names. Let us name and name them. You can also use your power to summon them to comply. If they cannot, you can also say you should also recommend to the powers, which is the president of it, and say, look, these below ministers or assistant ministers or public officials have not declared, their assets, and the president can take action against them. That's what LSCC should be doing, instead of giving additional time for people to apply. There's no flexibility in the law as we're giving additional time for people to comply.
Okay. You're listening to Integrity Watch. This is your hour-long radio program that is produced by Centra's Communication Division. and we have Matthias Yene. Matthias Yene is the executive director of the InfoQuest Liberia, which is a policy research and evidence-based advocacy and social impact governance institution. And they are involved into research for development purposes, and they are also into advocacy. The studio lines are open now. You can call 0777 Again, it's 0777 and make your contributions, or speak to Matthias or the public if you may. Another thing, Matthias, is the local government bill. We've heard the president. We know that the president should have the local government bill before him, which will mean that the Ministry of Internal Affairs will be transformed into the Ministry of Local Government.
Yeah.
So what would that do? What change would that make? Or what some of the changes that will make to governance, the entire governance of that ministry?
Thank you. So the president have submitted to the legislature the Ministry of Local Government bill. That Ministry of Local Government bill is to clearly transform the Ministry of Internal Affairs to the Ministry of Local Government.
Okay.
That means there will be no Ministry of Internal Affairs. There will be a Ministry of Local Government. The Ministry of Internal Affairs legally is stagnant. Is not able to implement fully implement decentralization policy,
Okay.
the national policy, the national decentralization policy, the national policy on reconciliation,
Mm.
and other issues. So because of that, the Ministry of Local Government bill needs to come into full swing. That will have other departments, like the Department on Decentralization, Department on Communal Farming, and all of that, in order to fully implement our decentralization strategy
Okay.
and in the Local Government Act of 2018. So the current Ministry of Internal Affairs, with its structure and everything, as established in the executive, law,
Mm.
doesn't have that legal standing in order to implement fully the decentralization law. So partners including the Governance Commission, Ministry of Internal Affairs, and civil society organizations, supported by the UNDP, have come together to say, look, let's have the Ministry of Local Government.
Okay.
So you will see that the appointments, when the president started to appoint, he was appointing people in line with the current structure of the Ministry of Internal Affairs, and we civil society organizations thought that the president should show the political will by following the Local Government Act and appointing people in positions of the structure
But
of the Ministry of Local Government.
it is not
so
yet
that
a law.
yeah,
How
no,
can the
no,
president
of
do that?
course it is not.
Yeah.
But it has a basis within another law, which is
Okay.
the Local Government Act of 2018. So the legal basis of the Local Government Act of 2018 and Local Government Act of 2018 call for the establishment of the Ministry of Local Government. So the Ministry of Local Government will now have 9 assistant ministers and 4 deputy ministers, looking at deputy minister of peace and reconciliation and urban
Okay.
affairs, deputy minister for decentralization, administration, and fiscal affairs, like that. So you have one minister who is the Minister of Internal Affairs, and what happens is that it is not an extra burden, and that's what I want to get clear. It's not an extra burden on government. So the budget allocated for the Ministry of Internal Affairs will just be transferred to the Ministry of Local Government.
Okay.
So whether assets, liabilities, and whatsoever are going to be transferred from Ministry of Internal Affairs to the Ministry of Local Government.
Okay.
And that's where we stand. So the bill has been submitted. InfoQuest Liberia is working with several lawmakers we've identified as champions of
Okay.
at the legislature. They're going to be championing the cause for the passage, both at the House of Representatives and the House of Senate. Those legislatures have signed pledge cards, pledging their support to the passage of the Ministry of Local Government Bill.
Hasn't it been signed or
No, it is currently at the legislature. The legislature has just returned, to section. So they will be looking at that bill. We've seen that copies have been distributed to them already.
Okay.
When and InfoQuest Liberia by next week will be having a legislative and stakeholder dialogue. And now not just on the Ministry of Local Government Bill, but there's also what we call the revenue sharing, regulation. So the revenue sharing bill was passed into law, in 2021 or so, establishing that legal basis for counties to withhold, portion of the revenue that are collected at the local level. And so the revenue sharing regulation should be approved by the Ministry of Finance Development Planning and with consultation with Internal Affairs, the Land Authority, the LRA, and so forth. And we have been having those stakeholder consultation with those people in order for it to be approved. Now, when we have the Ministry of Local Government Bill passed, we have the revenue sharing regulation approved by the Ministry of Finance, we will now see the transfer of funds directly to the ministry. So we'll see the establishment of county treasury that will now sit at the 15 counties level to manage, supervise, and build the capacity of the local authorities to withhold, funds. So revenue collected. So for example, for Bond County, for example, if Bond County collects 1.7 million US dollars, the portion of that with the calculation in the revenue sharing regulation, that certain amount should leave for Bond County, for the county council, the county treasury and so forth, and local authority to manage for their own development operations. So we'll not have the situation where counties will be crying to the central government, you need to send our social development fund money and so forth. That money will stay there. So government had several priorities. So when the money comes into the consolidated account, they go back, it becomes difficult. So we want to save government of that stress, of thinking how much to send and so forth. That the amount just stay with the counties, and the counties can be able to run their own affairs. And mind you, all of the anti-graft structures that are at a central level, at a national level, will also be at the local level. So you will have the LRA at the local level, representative there. You will have that sits on the county treasury. You will have the LSCC. You will have the General Auditing Commission, and all of those institutions, the anti-graft institutions, there at the local level to make sure to supervise and make sure there's issue of transparency and accountability at that level. And that's the kind of thing we want to do, and that's the main thing we call power to the people. Because decentralization is not just about administrative power, but it's also fiscal and administrative decentralization to that Liberians will feel a part of government, and then they will also manage their own resources.
0777-285-961, or you can call 0770-436-728, 0777-285-961, or 0770-436-728, and you will speak to Matthias Yene. He's the executive director of the InfoQuest Liberia, which is a policy research and evidence-based advocacy and social impact governance institution. And we are talking about what they have been doing, some of the activities of InfoQuest Liberia. We have this person on the line. Let's take this caller. Good morning. Oh, I think we lost the call. But we encourage you to call 0777-285-961 or 0770-436-728 and be live here and speak with Matthias Yene of InfoQuest Liberia. We are in need of research, critical research, which we inform our development initiatives and our development projects, and InfoQuest is here to help in that regard, and also, advocate for good governance in Liberia. Matthias, just quite recently, the assets recovery team, which was established by the president through an executive order, has been in some I've been seeing some exodus. The one of the members of the group, what is his name?
Emmanuel Gongwe.
Emmanuel Gonkwe resigned, and we saw some reports from one of the other member, which is Martin Colley, talking about some financial suspicion at the committee. I mean, what do you think? Are you following those things?
Definitely, definitely, and let me say, when this thing came up, I Anderson from Center,
Mm.
from your institution raised this that the president setting up of the asset recovery team was usurping the function of
Yep.
the LLCC, and it's clear, and I want to support again that argument that I think the president needs to see reason. I think it was a mistake to establish the assets recovery team outside of the LLCs. That is the function clearly in within the LLCC, act creating the LLCC
Mhm.
to recover assets. So section 4.1. You have D, E, and F that speaks clearly to that.
Mm.
With assets recovery. So you see, D, section 1D say the cost to arrest and detain any persons, persons with issue about corruption, and E says the cost of freezing of assets
Mm.
of persons or persons being investigated or prosecuted for alleged act of corruption. So I think, and then they also talk about also recovery.
Mm.
So the LSCC has that mandate, from our constitution to the act creating it, to recover assets, to seize assets, to prosecute people involved in the corruption. And I think the president needs to support the LCC, in doing that. And that is just the sign of taking a statutory institutions, the statutory institutions, a dedication,
Mhm.
and giving it to a team.
Okay.
We know that it's established by the executive order, and so forth. But then we think it was a mistake. I think the president can learn from what is happening with the resignation. We also talk about having politicians,
Of course,
yeah, of
yes.
course, on the asset recovery team. All of these things, try to have a questionable cloud over the composition of the team and all of that. And now you are seeing the fruit of that. Seeing the politicians are resigning. You're seeing there are issues that are raised about suspicion of corruption and all of that. I think it is now time that the president needs to step forward.
Okay.
Let him step forward and recover. I think the assets recovery team need recovery.
Of
Let's
course.
Yeah, let's recover. Let's recover. From them, and
Okay.
and ask the LCC to pursue these things and make sure that it happens. And I think the president needs to he can have his legal advisor,
Mm.
appointed to making sure that he works with the LSCC to having whatsoever responsibilities given to the asset recovery team to pursue by the LSCC. I think it will be a very good thing instead of having that. And I think the whole asset recovery thing should be squashed.
Okay. So you hear him. The asset recovery team will be squashed, and he's saying that what is not done properly is not done at all. Because I mean, as Senta stated in its position on the matter, the Liberia Anti-Corruption Commission has the power to recover assets. There's a team, there's a department, people there are trained, and you don't need additional committee to do or work that the LCC is empowered, is legislated to do. That's all the time we have for this edition of the program Integrity Watch. I would like to get to Matthias to give us 30 seconds, his parting comments.
Thank you, and I would like to thank you again for having me here. And let's say, as civil society organizations, it is our responsibility to making sure that we be as partner to government, speak for Liberians, and whether here in the diaspora, to making sure that our country is peaceful, our country. We improve our level of democracy. We have a very young democracy. We need to continuously build that, and it is with the work of civil society helping government to do that. And we are here to do it, to support the ongoing initiative of civil society organizations and government of Liberia in making sure that happens. The only way we can achieve that is when we work together. And I think all Liberians will have to work together to making sure that we see a very, independent, and transparent, public sector, and making sure that corruption is free from our society.
Thank you very much. And that's all the time we have for this edition of the program, Intact with the Watch. See you next Wednesday at about this time. My name is Edward Blamo. Bye-bye. Go use your